when I had gotten back, and we were starting to say, hey, are there any foods that aren't adding value to our life? And then I was like, all right, so I went with the whole gluten thing first. We're like, all right, we're gluten-free, gluten-free beer, please. And nothing wrong with gluten-free beer. And eliminated that. And then we're like, all right, let's try eliminating some processed foods and see how we feel eliminating processed foods. Let's try eliminating sugar. Let's try eliminating caffeine. And we went down this whole process of eliminating, but then going back to our old habits. Then we started to ask ourselves the question, do we need animal products? Like, is that adding value to our life? And we started to do a lot of research, and then for health reasons, we both decided veganism was for us. It was super boring, vegan stories, sitting on the couch, Googling healthiest diet, veganism, high five, we went vegan. Just shows how easy it is to actually go vegan. But after 2 years of being vegan, I realized I was plant-based. I wasn't vegan. I was eating a vegan diet, but I was still contributing to the industries that are exploiting animals. I was still wearing their skin and fur. I was still going to horse races and betting on them. I was still, what else was I doing? I was still going to zoos. I was still buying products that were tested on animals, not because I wanted to, just because I was uneducated. It was that innocent ignorance. It was because I thought veganism was a diet. And a lot of people think veganism is a diet. Veganism is a diet, or it's a fad, or it's something that we're just, clinging on to for the meantime. But then I watched Earthlings. Does everyone know what Earthlings is here? Yeah. Usually in a room full of activists, it's no hands up for that. And Earthlings kind of like slapped me in the face, and that's when I watched an hour and 50 minutes of that. I was just like hand over my mouth the whole time. And the thoughts that came to my mind were, dude, you're not vegan. You got to step your game up, and you got to go take action now. So that's when I sort of watched this movie and got taken so deep into these industries where I was like, I need to make a change. I need to align my actions wholeheartedly with my beliefs. Like, I loved animals. I didn't want to harm myself. I didn't want to harm the environment, but I was still supporting these industries because I didn't know how I was impacting animals in that regards, or the planet, or my health. So that's when I was like, I need to find my tribe. I need to be with my people. So I went to the, I think it's called Eat, Drink, Vegan now, but it's, that looks good. Whatever that is. Anyone order some tasty food? Nice. Get after it. So that's when I found my tribe. I went to a vegan festival. I was like, starting to hear this word activist. And I was like, what's an activist? I feel like every activist is just going stuff and chanting and being extreme, and that's how we all have that vision of what it means to be an activist. Then I was like, all right. I did my first protest was leafleting at Pride Festival, and it was a super great experience, but I wanted more. Then I went to a disruption with DXC in Whole Foods, chanting, it's not food, it's violence, doing all that stuff, and I loved it, but I was missing something still. Then I went and I bore witness at a vigil with the Save movement, had a very powerful time, but I still was missing something. Then I found Anonymous for the Voiceless. Then I found the Cube of Truth, and I was like, you know what, I love talking with people, and I love always being right. So let's take that veganness that's inside me and all that information and go bring it out to the streets. So I started the chapter of Anonymous for the Voices in Seattle in 2016 and just started doing cube after cube after cube, and then decided I wanted to do more. So I was like, all right, I'm going to quit my job and travel the world and do as much activism as possible. And long story short, that was kind of long, but leads me to here, which has been 18 months now, 23 countries. I've done 350 actions, free animals, over 100 talks. I've seen it all. I've gotten to see a really broad view of what the activist movement and vegan movement is like around the world. I've got to really see in depth what activists are doing, what we need more of, what we need less of, and that's what I'll talk about in Sunday's talk as well, is what few things that we should be avoiding in this activist movement. Hint, infighting is one of them, just insight into a little bit of the talk on Sunday. And the 4 things that I learned that I usually talk about for a while, because I'm really passionate about it, but I'm just going to spitfire it out so we can get into the outreach stuff, is a few things that I learned that were consistent all around the world. They're all going to be duh, Joshua, we knew that, but no one's talking about it because we need to continue to remind ourselves this stuff so we can stay focused. First is we must be active. It's the duh, Joshua, we're all activists here and blah, blah, blah. But we also need to inspire people to be active. We don't just have to go out there and help non-vegans go vegan. We can go out there and help vegans become active, and that's going to be super powerful. So what I want people to understand is, and people are understanding that, is just how much power we have. Not only to help someone live in alignment with their values and beliefs and choose veganism, but we have the power to turn someone into a very powerful activist, someone that's going to go out and do the same things that we're doing. So always keep that in your mind, that we have to be active. but active in many different ways, and I'm going to save that for Sunday's talk on the different ways that we can get active with aligning our actions with our passion and that sort of stuff. The second one was we must work together. There's the infighting part. There's a lot of stuff happening in this movement all around the world. I'm not just singling out Detroit. I know there's got to be infighting happening here. It usually takes place on those Vegans of Detroit page, and everyone's blasting everyone and the keyboard warriors, and it's just sucking your energy. And then there's stuff that happens in the community, maybe between activists and a restaurant, or activists and an organization. So we have to work together. We're a very small number. If you take the stat, 1% of the world's vegan, 1% of vegans. Are you with us? Oh, God. Are you looking at? Oh, you're like waving them in.
I was like, they're open.
Okay, I just gotta stop saying hi to everyone. It's like, come on, join the party. Yes, so we must work together. If you take the stat, 1% of the world's vegan, 1% of vegans are activists. That's about 750,000 vegan activists in the world, and I think it's a lot less. Just by off the numbers and seeing who I've seen around the world, it's a lot less. So if we're not working together, we're pulling the movement apart. We need to lift each other up, not bring each other down. But I'll save that for Sunday. The other one is we must take care of our headspace. What's going on up here? That's another Sunday talk. But so many activists that I met around the world are suffering from just being vegan in a non-vegan world. I mean, to put it simply, it's tough. When we wake up and we have this passion to want to see this instant gratification, this instant animal liberation, we want it now, but we're not seeing it. That takes a huge toll on our mental well-being, our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, and a lot of people aren't processing that as effectively as they can, so we have to take care of that. But I'll talk about the tips and tricks that we can use to do that on Sunday. Just realize this is a little plug for Sunday's talk. Come on Sunday. And then the last one is we must eliminate fear. How many people are new to activism in here? Sweet, sweet, sweet. Well, everyone, a little bit of both, or is that waving at me?
No, it was,
okay, cool. So
Newish.
It's fear. The biggest fear that I found that was consistent around the world is the fear of what other people think of us. The fear of what other people think of us stop us from going vegan and stop us from getting active. Are we going to be looked at as too extreme? Are we going to be looked at as like this vegan? You know, that's all you got to say. Or are we going to be looked at as someone who's now pushing our beliefs and someone who want to get active? This fear, what other people are thinking about us, is stopping us from creating mass change. Because if you're fearful of listening to your own values and beliefs and taking that next step to be vegan, you're limiting yourself. You're having limiting beliefs. You're basing someone else's opinion of you. You're putting that higher than your own opinion of yourself. So it's hard, easier said than done, to go throughout life valuing other people's opinions. What do I wear? How do I cut my hair? Is this person going to like me? Or am I going to be looked at as nice or mean or rude? We always want to be mindful of what other people think of us, but don't let that dictate your life, especially if it's stopping you from getting active. Greatness lies just on the other side of uncomfort in this movement. We have truth on our side. I think everyone can agree that what we do to animals is immoral, unjust, barbaric. Fill in your words after that if you want, but if we stop focusing on what other people are thinking about us in regards to us getting active, then we're going to get out there and do more activism and going to feel more confident and more empowered when we're out there doing it. And that's so important. I think that was 4. Yes?
Yes.
Woo. Blitz through that, and now I got to go through like 6 slides. All right, getting into some outreach stuff, the cool stuff. Really quick show of hands. How many of you have ever spoken with a random person on the street about veganism? Don't be shy if you haven't. Don't be shy. How many of you have spoken with a family member about veganism? Usually gets a laugh or 2.
Yes.
Usually it's 2 people next to each other, you know, vibing out. How many people have spoken with a coworker? A friend? Did I say that? Friend? A dog? Come on, you've had conversations with your dogs or cats about veganism. So basically, I didn't do this to call anyone out or say like, oh, you haven't spoken with someone on the street, you're not a vegan activist. It's actually the opposite. You've all done outreach. You all have had a conversation with someone where you might be taking them from maybe knowing nothing about veganism to knowing everything. And I think that's what held me back at the beginning, is I thought in order to be a vegan outreacher, I had to go on the street, get in an argument, film it, and put it on YouTube. I thought that was like the only way I could do vegan outreach, but that wasn't the case. Vegan outreach could be having that conversation with a family member, a coworker, someone on a bus, plane, train. Planes are usually long outreach conversations. Do those, you know, with caution, but they're great. But we all have those conversations, and sometimes what stops people from getting out and switching to doing outreach is that they don't feel that they have the confidence. Maybe it's they just don't know all the information that they want. We'll learn the information. It takes time, practice. But the first thing you should realize is that you've all had a conversation with someone about veganism. The truth is on your side. You know it. So now it's just about translating that into speaking with a random person, which I'm sure a lot of you can agree. It's so much easier speaking to random people on the street than a family member.
Yes.
I mean, I just get into arguments with my family member, not all of them. On the street, it's like, if you don't like the conversation, just peace, just turn around and walk away. Like, you'll never see them again. Well, maybe in Detroit, I don't know how small Detroit is, but I think just knowing that gave me a lot of power and has given a lot of the people that have come to these talks some big encouragement and empowering feeling that when they go to the cube after this, they're like, you know what, when I'm ready, I don't want anyone to do outreach until they feel ready, until they feel confident and that they have the information there so they can, one, speak effectively on behalf of the animals, but for themselves. Nothing's worse than going out and doing outreach when you're not ready, and then that stops you from doing outreach for a long time. Just wait, shadow people, listen, build that confidence, feel good about yourself, so that when you go out there, you're like speaking with conviction, speaking with confidence, and you feel good that you're out there speaking up for the animals. So, most everything I talked about tonight, does anyone not know what a cube of truth is? Sweet, okay, good. I like this audience. So everything that I'm going to chat about today can directly apply to the cube of truth. Because we have, I'll talk a lot about, I'll be pointing at this imaginary wall a lot tonight, as this is my screen. So we have footage in front of us. We have a really nice piece of information that we can show people visually. But everything that I talk about tonight can be adapted to speaking with family members, coworkers, friends, someone on a bus, plane, or train if you don't have footage. You'll just have to paint the picture for them. You just won't have something to show them where you can like really make that visual connection, but it's so easy to just be like, well, yeah, when you think of the chickens that are being rounded up a lot, you can paint that picture for them. You don't have to have the computer screen, but since we are going to a cube of truth after this, a lot of this directly applies straight to that. And I've done like close to 150 cubes in the last year, and this stuff is like an accumulation, what I'm going to talk about tonight, of all of that, plus 4 years of, forgot to mention I was a salesman for 4 years, majored in communication in college, so I had a lot of information that I sort of put together into this nice little package that I'm going to talk about tonight. But a few things that I like to remember before we get into the whole strategies behind vegan outreach. We need to understand people's behaviors and why we do what we do. We need to understand why people do what we do. And you might be like, why do I need to do that? I just want to go talk about veganism and have everyone make the connection. And I'll get to that in a moment, because we make every decision in life, what we do, our behaviors, our habits, our actions, whether or not we're going to be gaining pleasure or avoiding pain. Everything we do is whether we assign pain or pleasure to the outcome. And it's so much easier to avoid pain and stay in a place of comfort, stay in a place of pleasure, than to seek new pleasure, seek new behaviors. So this got me really thinking about veganism, that majority of people have a hard time changing their habits, their behaviors of going vegan, because it's comfortable for them right now. They're in a state of pleasure. They're in a state of happiness. Their current, they think they're in a state of happiness and pleasure, but their diet, that's pleasurable to them. Their meal plans, their restaurants they go to, the friends that they hang out with, the activities that they do, horse races, zoos, that's all pleasurable for them. Now, when they think about changing their entire belief system and changing their entire sort of habits and behaviors, that's painful. It's sort of like New Year's comes around and you're like, you know what? I'm getting my butt into gear and I'm going to start exercising. We don't do it on New Year's, or maybe we do it for the first day. Why? Because it's so much more pleasurable to lay in bed, to stay under the covers, and to not get up and it's cold in Detroit, and to not think about going to the gym and getting all sweaty and like burning calories and cool stuff like that. And it's better to think about eating my normal, maybe unhealthy breakfast than going out and getting exercise and eating something healthier. That's more pleasurable. Thinking about all of that other stuff adds just enough pain to where we're like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to stay in that place of comfort. So it really got me thinking about veganism, because there is this thing that it's called the pain threshold. And I sort of switched my mindset when I went to do vegan outreach. I was like, you know what? I used to think every conversation that I had was all about lecturing. I used to think every conversation was all about me, my agenda, my views, my message that I wanted to promote. Not saying that I ever forget my agenda. My agenda is always the animals. My message is always the animals. But I led with that. And what that did is it forced me to go into the lecture mode. And the lecture mode for vegan outreach is not, it's far from the most effective thing that we, just got loud for a second. Quiet it down for a second. The lecture mode, when we're forced to go in this lecture mode, is because we make it about us. We go in there, we want to really speak up for the animals, we want to speak the truth, we have so much passion, and we go in there and we're like, this is what happens in this industry, this is this, this is this, this is this, what do you think? And then we ask the question, you know, but this is this. My first outreach conversation was like 2 minutes, lecture, and then I was like, all right, bye. I was like so nervous, I just wanted to get my message out, but I realized that that's not the most effective thing to do. Then I switched my train of thought. I said, we can't make it about us. Always think about your message and your agenda here. That's what should be driving us into our outreach. But we got to make it about them. We have to make it about the person that we're speaking with. And then to take it to the next level, we have to make it about building a relationship. I think I talked a little bit about this last night, but it might be weird to think, what do you mean, building a relationship with this random person on the side of the street? Yes, we need to build trust, respect, and rapport with the person that we're speaking with. We want to uncover their pain points, their wants, their needs, their desires, what they know about veganism, what they don't know about veganism. We want to know what makes them happy, maybe what makes them sad, maybe what makes them disgusted, fearful, scared. We want to know, this is my screen, see? We want to know so much about this person and what they know and what they want, what they need, and what they desire. Because when we get this information, it's going to be so much easier to walk them down the path and hold their hand to veganism. It's like in sales. You don't have to have done sales to understand this. But if I'm trying to sell you my shoes, which you can't see right now, they're brown, and I know nothing about you, but I just go in lecture mode and make it about me, and I try to sell you my shoes. I might be able to sell you my shoes by the end of it if I'm a really good salesman. Maybe. But maybe you're a sandals girl. Maybe you don't like brown shoes. Maybe you're a barefoot walker. Who knows? I don't know. I don't judge. But if I don't uncover this information, I know it's weird to think about the shoes and veganism. I'll get to it in a moment. But if I don't try to ask you questions and try to get to know you and try to build this relationship, when there's no trust and no rapport, you're not gonna feel comfortable giving me information. I just met you on the side of the street. When you feel like we're friends and there's trust being built and there's rapport, you're gonna be more comfortable to give me more information. So every outreach conversation, change your mindset and go into that conversation and say, hey, how can I get to know this person better? How can I uncover some of their pain points, their wants, their needs, their desires, stuff that they know, stuff that they don't know? Maybe they're vegan and you just didn't ask. You know, maybe they're vegetarian and they're thinking about going vegan. You're never gonna get that. I'll talk about the strategies that makes it really easy to get to this point. But like I said, one thing that clicked in my head was this pain threshold. Another goal of mine, not only to build this relationship, but to get to know that person better. Because I'll go back to that, get to know the person better really quickly. We all know what it's like to speak with someone and feel that we have their full attention and that they respect us and that they trust us. We put our heart on the table more easily. We give them more information, even when it's random people. We've all dealt with that really amazing salesperson that just made us feel like loved and respected. We're like, yeah, how can I buy it? Whatever you're selling, you know? And we felt good and we felt happy. And I don't like relating vegan outreach to sales in a direct sense, but it is. We're just selling a framework, a lifestyle, an ideology. It should be an easy sale. But we need to use some of the tactics, and it's authentic. I'm not one of those like corny salesmen going out there and trying to sell someone on veganism. I truly value this person's time. If they've stopped to give me a moment of their time on the side of the street, I'm so grateful for that, because now we have this space that we can talk. And we have this space that hopefully I can help benefit their life, they can help benefit their own life, and the life of the animals and the planet. So this is what I keep in my mind when building that relationship is, why not work on that relationship? And it's just great practice for being better human beings, I think, as well. So back to that pain threshold. The last thing that I keep in my mind before I get to an outreach conversation is my goal is to help them link enough pain to the current lifestyle or enough pleasure to the new one, veganism. They need to do it. That was the key word. I want them to be able to link that association. Because when it gets more uncomfortable, when the pain goes below that threshold, then we change. Then we start working out. Maybe we just feel really out of shape and we can't breathe going up the stairs, or we just don't feel good because we're eating all this oily food. And now we've linked pain to that. Oh, my family's really unhealthy. They have this disease or this and that. And when you've assigned pain to that, that's when you change your behavior. That's when we all changed our behavior to go to veganism, when we linked enough pain to it. For me, it was health. I had really bad stomach issues, really bad acne, and I was like, if I keep doing this, I'm going to continue to feel this way. And that was painful for me. That's when I internally was like, you know what? Now I'm going to assign pleasure to this new lifestyle. For a lot of people that watch Earthlings or Dominion or Dairy is Scary, that's all the pain they need. They know that if they continue to pick up that glass of milk or that yogurt or that hamburger, then that's painful to them. They know what's happening. To a lot of people, I'd like to see more people making the ethical connection like that, but in time, that's all of our jobs. So I keep a few of those things in mind. Focus, before I enter any conversation, how can I build up the relationship? One that's built around trust, respect, and rapport. How can I get to know that individual a lot better? It's harder with a dog, but how can I help them associate pain to a carnist lifestyle, but by finding their specific pain points, which we'll get to throughout this conversation. And then how can I help them go below that threshold, but then to the next step, assigning pleasure to veganism. It's one thing to just say, hey, veganism's the answer, but how can we cater to their needs with giving them the pleasure that they need. If it's someone, if health is really important for them, which you'll hear a few stories later on, that you got to cater to their needs and give them that pleasure point for them. Always talk about ethics, because veganism is about ethics. But give them, in this conversation, we only have a short amount of time with each individual. Unless you're on a plane, then you have like however long your conversation is. I keep talking about this, like a 3.5 hour long outreach conversation on a plane once. Exhausted me. It was really good, but it exhausted me. So yes, keep that stuff in mind. Focus on building the relationship. Focus on pain and pleasure, and understand human behavior. Why we choose to do things. You know, someone who was an alcoholic, who has been clean for 20 years, assigned enough pain to drinking alcohol, enough pleasure to staying sober. That's why they'll never drink again. We need to help people do that. Same thing with their behaviors and their habits with not eating, or eating animals versus not eating animals and not using animals. So I keep that little simple thing in my mind, kind of simple, just by going into my outreach conversations. Because when we find out all this information, which you'll see throughout these 5 strategies I'm going to talk about next, when we get this information, when they tell us this stuff, it's so much easier to sell them the shoes. It's so much easier to have them make the connection and go vegan when they've put their heart on the table and given you information because they trust you, because they respect you, because there's rapport built there. So, how do you find out all of this magical information? Well, I pretty much created, what do I say pretty much? Does anyone else say that? Pretty much? I've created this information through the years of doing what I did, and just created 5 strategies that I use in every single one of my outreach conversations. I'll say them all 5 right now, but I'm going to go, that's what the talk is. I'm going to go in detail on each of these strategies. I use these in every single one of my outreach conversations, and they have just been, I'm going to redefine what a successful conversation is at the end, but they've made it so that 99% of my conversations have been successful. I'll just define it now so you don't think I'm very ego-driven and very cocky about success. Success isn't them going vegan. That is one form of a successful conversation. But a successful conversation to me is one where there's no arguing, one where there's no yelling, one where there's happiness, positivity, trust, understanding, one where they're listening to me. That's a successful conversation. So I would say 99% of my conversations now end successful because I use this stuff. Because I focus on building that relationship instead of just going there and like yelling all of my information at them and trying to be like, wake up. Even though that's sort of what my mind thinks from time to time is, go vegan, you know? But it doesn't happen all the time. So the strategies are ask, listen, understand, educate, and inspire. For those writing down, ask, listen, understand, educate, and inspire. Perfect water break time. First one is ask. These are kind of Joshua as well. I like these, but it's so nice to see them in sort of like a concrete, let's repeat it, let's go in detail into some of these things. Ask well-planned, open-ended questions. You may be saying, well, yeah, we get that, we got to ask questions, but the majority of outreachers that I listen to throughout the world aren't asking enough questions. They're doing the lecture approach, and that's okay when you're just getting started. It's so hard. Like I said, for the first 5 or 6 cubes where I was doing maybe 5 to 10 outreach conversations, they were all lectures. I was like, I just want to get my information out there. Here's what's going on. Please go vegan. Here's a card. Try Challenge 22. Bye. You know, like that was me building up the confidence and the knowledge and the trust in myself that, hey, let's take a step back. Dude, you've done this before. We know how to ask questions because the key is no one likes to be told things. We could scare someone into going vegan, where they're like, okay, fine, I'll go vegan, and they leave, and then they're not going to be vegan, but we might feel good. It's not about that. we want people to come to their own conclusion on making their decision on whether or not they want to change their behavior. So does anyone not know what the Socratic method is, or Socratic questioning? It's okay if you don't. Cool. So I'm just going to give a quick, very detailed definition, and then I'll simplify it, just because I think it's really important, because Socratic questioning is used in a lot of professions around the world and is sales, social work, and vegan outreach. And it is the key, I think is one of the key factors to having really successful conversations, is asking the right questions and utilizing that effectively. So Socratic questioning is a form of disciplined questioning that can be used to pursue thought in many directions and for many purposes, including to explore complex ideas, to get the truth out of things, and to open up issues and problems. So basically, we want to ask questions that get people to think, that get people to examine their own thought process, which in turn is going to get them to repeat things in their head and say things out loud that's going to get them to bridge the gap and to make their own connection. So if you ask the right questions, if you ask questions instead of telling, so here's an example. If you look at the screen and you say, this is animal cruelty, someone might be like, okay, it's animal cruelty. If you ask them some really good questions, what does animal cruelty look like to you? Or what sort of cruelty have you seen done to animals? And if you get them to start thinking this way and start speaking it and asking questions, now their brain is like, animals, cruelty, my vision, my past experiences, I've seen it all. Boom, this is animal cruelty. I didn't just tell it to them. So asking this well-planned, open-ended questions is so important. We want people to think. We want people to challenge their own thought process. We want people to challenge their limiting beliefs. Everything that we've done in life, we've had a certain belief system that has pretty much decided what our behaviors were, what our actions were. And it's okay to challenge these beliefs. We should be challenging our beliefs. As vegans, we should always be challenging our beliefs and coming back to things and seeing if we can adjust and speak better about this topic, or if there's this product that we didn't know was vegan, and we have to challenge our beliefs and adopt new behaviors, always. But you're never going to do that without asking the right questions. And the reason why I say well-planned is I think we should all have these questions written down. We should all have a script for ourselves. We should all be asking some of the same questions in every conversation. One is some form of, do you eat animals? I had a great conversation with this lady for like 15 minutes, and I thought I was asking the most amazing questions, and like 15 minutes in, she goes, yeah, I'm vegan. I was like, so probably could have spent like 2 minutes with you, getting you to join the tribe and get active, and then the rest of the time focusing on people that were there watching the footage that weren't vegan. So that's why I think having the right questions and finding the ones that work for you. Now, I have the same set of questions that I usually ask, which I'm going to give you some after in a moment, but we should all find the questions that work for us. I'm sure in your job you have questions that you kind of know what answer you might get. That's going to happen when we practice asking the right questions in vegan outreach. You're like, hey, I know that this might be an emotionally triggering question where I'm going to get someone to tap into what their heart says. Or this might be some factual question where I'm going to get them to give me some information and see what they know or don't know about the topic. So we want to ask questions, because the other thing about asking these questions is we want people to talk. We want people to give us all this information. Remember, we want to uncover their pain points, their wants, their needs, their desires, what they know about veganism, what they don't know. You don't get that information if you're just lecturing. I think I asked 2 questions. Have you seen this footage before? And do you want to try challenge 22? Like my first outreach conversation. The rest was just me talking. And yes, I'm sure you've done it before. People will sit there and listen to you. They'll just be like, But in their mind, they're like, can I say something? Do I have a say? Like, we want to give people the space to talk, because what they're going to tell you is so important. That's going to be the magical information that you're going to be able to use throughout that conversation. And the other thing is, too, is communication is two-way. Even with the words that we use, when you say, hey, I spoke to that person. No, you spoke with that person. Let's eliminate this to. To is one way. I'm speaking to you. Let's say I'm speaking with this person. Communication is me to you, you to me. Whether it be verbal, nonverbal, or text, that's communication. It's definition. It's two-way. So think of that when you're going to have your conversations. Make it about them. Give them the space to talk. Let them ask questions. Let them uncover information about you as well. And then you're going to be able to give them information. And then I'll say these 3 words, respect, trust, and rapport, a lot today. maybe tomorrow. But the more we build those 3 things up in the conversation, the friendlier the conversation gets, the happier it gets, the more information gets shared, laughs start to happen, hugs start to happen, and then the more they trust you and the more information they give you, so that at the end, when you give them that call to action to try and challenge 22 or to watching these documentaries, they take it more seriously, they trust you more, and they value your opinion and your advice a lot more than if you were just, hey, this is this, this is this, this is this. Make it about them. Ask them the right questions. Because remember, the goal is to uncover as much information as possible. Because all of this juicy little, I call them vegan nuggets, all these little vegan nuggets we're going to get, bits of information, are going to be just the magic that we're going to be able to use throughout the conversation, which will make sense a little bit more. So the first strategy was ask, and I'm going to tell you just a few questions. You can write these down. I can copy and paste these and send these to you afterwards, but I think it's so important, especially before we head to a cube, to go over some of these questions, because a lot of people ask me before, you're talking about how to ask these questions and why, but what are some of them? So I want to tell you the top questions that I use in almost every outreach conversation and sort of what you will expect to hear or what emotion you will expect to get from it. So like I said, I can send you these afterwards. Or you can write them down after this talk as well. And I always like to change my questions on a weekly basis. I have my core questions, which 90% of these are. Some are new. I like to challenge myself and be like, I'm still waiting to find the magical question that turns someone vegan in a moment. I'll let you know when I find it. Promise I will post it online somewhere. But I like to challenge myself every week to be like, what question could I ask that might get this emotion to come up, or might get this answer, or might get this feedback? I think we should all be working on figuring out new questions that we can ask to keep things fresh for ourselves and to try to get new bits of information. Because I found that I've asked some new questions that I didn't know what to expect from, and the information they gave me was so beautiful. And I was like, all right, now those are part of my core questions. So I'm going to go over a few. Standard one, if you've ever done a Cube of Truth, how does this footage make you feel? Or how does watching this make you feel? Basically, feel. When people are having this conversation with you and they're looking at the screen, cognitive dissonance is at play here, they're trying to put up their wall. When you ask them how something makes them feel, now you're getting them to think with their heart. You're getting them to separate their thoughts from their brain for a second, and now you're bringing them within. And I always try to get them to think from their hearts, because I truly believe that's where veganism, that change of behavior comes from. Is when we can really just stop thinking about that past conditioning and those limiting beliefs and start thinking with how our heart truly feels. So how does this footage make you feel? It's going to get people, obviously their reaction usually is like shit or not good, and that's great. I love that answer because that's their heart speaking, that's not their mind. It's amazing. It's like not making you feel good. Do you think that's your heart trying to tell you something? Then you can feed off of some questions from that and really take them down a path of now they're uncovering how they feel. So I love that question. This is a question that I thought was really stupid and simple and that I love and use in every conversation, and I think everyone should. Where have you seen this footage before? I thought it was going to be such a simple YouTube, Facebook, which it is, but it's understanding how powerful that information is and where to take it. So I always say one of my first couple questions is, so where have you seen it before? And if they've told me they've seen it before. I'm like, I've seen it on Facebook. They're like, oh, wow, there's a lot of videos going on Facebook. Were you able to watch it, or did you swipe right by it? I swiped right by it. Why? Why weren't you able to watch it? Did you know something? You were going to get some feeling? Yeah, I just knew that it was going to make me feel bad. Now you're walking them down this path where they're telling you that they know it's bad, they couldn't watch it. That's very powerful information. The other part that was really incredible that came from this question is this will happen very rarely, but it's happened to me a few times. Someone will be like, yeah, I actually saw a documentary the other day. I'm like, oh, cool. I was expecting what the hell, Cowspiracy. What documentary did you see? Oh, it was something called Earthlings or Dominion, and they'll say something like that. That is so powerful because that means you don't take your conversation this way. Change your conversation and go this way. When someone tells you they've watched Dominion or Earthlings, are you vegan? How are you feeling after that? What got you to watch that video? Who got you to watch that video? What thoughts are you having after watching this documentary? Now your conversation, don't waste your time with all these simple questions about how does it make you feel. They just watched Earthlings. They just watched Dominion. So now you can structure your conversation to go a completely different way and really nurture the fact that they just sat through 2 hours and 10 minutes, if they watched Dominion, 2 hours and 5 minutes of powerful content, powerful truth. So that's an amazing, a simple question. Where have you seen it? A simple open-ended question is going to give you so much information. I like to think that you have simple questions that give you complex answers, and you have complex questions that give you very simple questions. I like the simple questions that give you a lot of information. It's just changing your perception and seeing that information is valuable. When someone tells me they saw something on Facebook, I'm like, yes, what did you see? YouTube, was it dairy or skip? And now you have all these juicy little vegan nuggets to kind of throw throughout the rest of the conversation. So there's also that, like I said, do you eat animals? Or do you, depending on how savage you want to get, do you eat the body parts of animals? Do you eat the secretions of animals? Or if it's more playful, are you vegan? Like, we want to know where they are. Because a lot of the times, like, no, I'm not, but I've been thinking about it. Or no, I'm not, I'm vegetarian. No, I'm not, I'm pescatarian. Or yes, I'm vegan. All very powerful pieces of information. They're going to help you decide which way to take your conversation. But if you didn't ask that, you're going to be stuck 15 minutes into the conversation speaking with a vegan about veganism. It's fun, practice, but not effective. And then this is something I just added recently that I love, and I think everyone has loved this and used this so far, is when I say, do you eat animals? It's usually a yes or no, or like a yes, I do, because they kind of know that we're standing in front of, it's kind of a judgmental question. And I go, which animals do you eat? And the reason why I say which animals do you eat is because now they can't say hamburger, they can't say bacon, they can't say cheese. And then usually you'll get this reaction. They won't say anything for like 3 seconds. Like, which animals do I eat? And then so I'll fill in the blank for them all day. Cows, pigs, I'll like normalize it for them that it's okay to say these animals. Cows, pigs, like, oh yeah, I eat fish, chicken. I want them to put a name. I want them to put actually who the animal is and see that vision. Because when you say hamburger, you see a different vision than when you say cow. So it's all about training that brain to say, yeah, I eat cow. I eat fish. I eat chicken. It's a beautiful, simple question. Oh, which animals do you eat? And just be silent. And it's so funny. Like, don't laugh or smile. It's really hard. I'm getting like happy right now because it's pretty funny the reaction you get if you try it today. They'll be like, trying to think about it. Then fill in the blanks for them. So I love that question. This is a new one that I'm going to try today is, what do you think about veganism? What are your thoughts on veganism? Because this is like a non-judgmental, you're allowing them space, and then I always follow up with a different question I used to ask. Hey, and I like honesty. Before they have a chance to answer, this kind of gives them that like non-judgmental, understanding space to just unload it. And some people will be like, you know what, I agree with it. You know, I have some friends that are vegan, this and that, and some people are like, vegans? And they'll just go for it, you know? But that's great. I like both ways, because then when they take this side, vegans, now you get to uncover what they don't like about veganism and this sort of pain point that they have associated with veganism. And then on the other side, you get to hear a little bit about the pleasure that they've assigned to veganism, or maybe that they just have experimented with it. Just, once again, all really powerful pieces of information. Love this one for if there's a moment of silence. I'm sure you've all had that time where it's awkward and the person doesn't say anything and they're just like watching the screen. I'll follow up, I'll let them watch, I'll let them consume, and say, hey, what sort of thoughts are you having right now? Or what are you thinking right now? Another one of those emotionally charged questions where you're giving them space to just freely tell you what they're thinking about. Because if someone's sitting there watching what happens to a baby cow in the dairy industry, that's a lot for them to process. And they might tell you some really powerful pieces of information that you can use later on in the conversation. A new one that I thought about the other day that I'm going to start today is, are there any causes that you support? Or do you support any causes? Are there any organizations that you support? I don't know when I'm going to use this. I'm going to figure that out today. But I really want to give people the space to talk about being proud about a cause that they support. Also following that with a new one today about what are some of your core values? Or what do you stand for? And I think there is going to be a time in there when they're talking about maybe, and I'm just working this out now for the first time because I literally just wrote this down in the car because I had this pop into my head. I think people are really going to be like, I want people to feel proud and empowered. Yeah, I actually stand for this, and maybe I feed the houseless people, or maybe I do this, or maybe I do that. And now you're getting them to feel like they're standing up for some injustice. And then you can follow up with, do you think that your actions are completely aligned with your core values and beliefs? Do you think that the organizations that you stand for, the injustices that you stand for should stop there? Or do you think that you could be making simple changes in your life that would extend that to other beings? And so I really am focusing on making it about them and empowering them to feel like they have something that they stand for. Because a lot of people, I'm sure you've got it, say, oh, what could I do? What difference can I make? I'm one person. Well, they know what difference they can make, especially if they volunteered on the holidays serving food to people in need. They know what that feels like. They know what taking a stand feels like and speaking up for people that maybe don't have the same voice as they do, or speaking up for an injustice. Let's get people to associate that and then tie that in with veganism. Then make people say, hey, you've already got that. You've got that in your heart. It's amazing to see that you do this. Maybe they do something incredible. Maybe they go and volunteer to build schools in this country every single year for 2 months. That's amazing information. Why not extend that to other beings? That same passion that you have for fighting against injustice, why not extend it? And so I think I'm going to try that today. And this last question that I wrote down today that I got from sort of changed in this book is about, has to do with habit interruptions. So interrupting people's habits. Of course, habit interruptions, didn't mean to say that. So people are in their current lifestyle and they're sticking to their habits and that's comfortable for them, the whole pain and pleasure thing. So I want to ask a question that's going to interrupt that habit in the moment. So their habit of eating animals, I thought about saying a question that I'm going to try today. If when people are not really in agreement with veganism, or if they are, I'm going to say, well, think about this. Like, if you sat down to have a meal, every time you sat down to have a meal, you were to stop before you ate and think about the animal. What sort of thoughts do you think you'd have? That's a very habit-interrupting question, because now they're leaving that conversation, and then when they leave my convo today, I'm going to say, hey, think about that question I asked. Next time you sit down for a meal, take a moment to think about the animal before they got to your plate. And hopefully that's going to rewire the brain in the future if they continue with that new habit of doing that, or if I've gotten enough in their brain to where when they sit down next, you know they're going to go out and eat some dinner after that conversation, or lunch, or breakfast, and they're going to think about it. If they've sat with me for 10 minutes and had a conversation, they're going to think about it. So I want to ask these questions that are getting people to challenge their current situation. Another one that I ask is, well, what if you were to go into a grocery store, go to the meat section to buy your cow's meat for hamburgers, and you were to see this computer screen showing what happens in the meat industry? How would you think? So now what I'm doing is training their brain, hopefully, so that next time they go in the store, they envision this invisible computer screen. But really it's the thought in their head that's set up to interrupt their pattern of doing the same thing. So challenge yourself to ask these new questions. Ask me if you ever want some new questions or need to think of new ones. I can give you all of these. I think I didn't say a few of these, but we can talk about them later. Because the answers that you get will give you all the information you need throughout this conversation that will set you up for more success than if you weren't asking these questions. I'm sure you can all see the power of asking these questions and really how they will just, one, take the conversation away from you. It's so nice to just sit there and ask like a 10-second question and they talk for 2 minutes. Like, that's amazing, because now they're starting to train their brain to think and say these things, not just me. And then I can fill in the gaps whenever I need. So when in doubt, ask questions. So that's number 1. And after number 3, we will take a break. Number 2 is listen. So we've asked the great questions. We've asked the well-planned, open-ended questions. Now it's time to listen to those answers. Listen to what they have to say. But not just the yeah, and all that's going in your head is, how can I combat that objection? Plants don't feel pain, you idiot. You're laughing because you have these thoughts in your head, right? You're not really listening to what people have to say. So the key is actively listen. We want to pay attention to what people are saying. We want to make eye contact with them. We want to keep our ears open, truly, to receiving all this information. Because when you do that, we know what it's like to go over to Bestie's house and have this conversation and put all our problems out on the table, and they're like on their phone or like, yeah, and they're not listening. We don't feel respected, we don't feel trusted, and we don't give as much information to them. We hold that in. We keep the wall up because we feel like someone's not truly taking in the information. switch that around and have that bestie that's like looking at you and like repeating back what you're saying and hugging you or touching you on the shoulder and like giving you feedback and listening to you, we let it all out. When we feel like we have someone listening to us, I'm sure in your social work and that sort of thing, when someone's listening to us, people could go on forever. They give you the information. So the same thing goes with vegan outreach. Listen to people. The easiest way is just to eliminate the thought of trying to come up with your combative. Don't worry about your combative yet. You know all the information. You have the truth on your side. Focus on them because you're going to be missing information if you don't listen. I promise you, if you are not actively listening, you will be missing information. Because, once again, respect, trust, and rapport will just increase the more someone feels listened to and encouraged. So they're trusting us and they're going to give us more information. That's powerful. So I'll give, this technique does take a little bit of time to really actively listen to what people are saying. But when you do this, you'll see your outreach go to the next level. I'll give you a story. I was talking with this amazing lady about the dairy industry. Usually I call her the dairy lady, and that was the first time I didn't. So a lady I was speaking with about the dairy industry, and I was asking these really great questions, and I always like to say, instead of this is what happens in the dairy industry, I say, tell me a little bit about what you know about the dairy industry. Give them the floor first before I tell them. They might know everything. Maybe they're a dairy farmer. Maybe they grew up on a dairy farm. We don't know. I never want to assume. I want to give them the space. And so she went right into, I know so much. My family had a dairy farm, blah, blah, blah. I didn't spend much time there, but I know that the cows are artificially inseminated. I know that this happens. I know that they're hooked up to machines. I know that they have their milk taken from them. But she didn't mention anything about what happens to the babies. I think we can all agree that's a very powerful piece of information to talk about. And so I held on to that information. And I'll tell you why in strategy number 4. But if you're actively listening, what they don't say, you will uncover. If you're not, that would have gone right over my head, and I would have just been like, all right, she knows a lot about the dairy industry. Boom, let's move on to the egg industry. I would have gone back to just giving out my information. So actively listen, ask the right questions, and uncover that information. So she didn't mention anything about, you just wait, they're not here with us, just waving, just waving.
I'm so sorry. I must hug them.
Hug them, hug them, please. I can drink some tea. I'm easy. I'm not professional, kind of. But I won't wait till the conversation's over, so you can hear the rest later. So listen, actively listen to this information, because all of that info is going to be so important. So she told me what she didn't know about it, and I kept on to that info. The other part about listening is I'm always looking how to take it to the next level. And in college, I majored in communication, took a lot of nonverbal communication classes. And depending on what study you read, it's anywhere from 60 to 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So hand gestures, body positioning, tonality, eye contact, facial expressions, pretty much your nonverbals speak volumes, 60 to 90% volumes. So basically what I realized is maybe I can be focusing, because I did it in sales, I focused on people's nonverbals in sales. Basically what I'm saying is 60 to 90% of all communication is nonverbal, so we should also be trying to listen to people's nonverbals. Watch what their eyes are doing, with their facial expressions, body posture, tonality. I'm sure you've all had those conversations where you start at the computer and 5 minutes later you're like 6 feet away because those people are like slowly moving away. That's their nonverbals telling you something. Maybe they have to go. Maybe they don't want to be there. Maybe you're a little bit in their face. Maybe your tone of voice is a little bit too energetic for them and they're kind of reserved. If someone's standing with their arms kind of crossed and like looking a little like angry or something, maybe you're a little bit aggressive. Maybe you should tone down your tone a little bit, if that makes sense. And there was this story where it clicked in Seattle. I was having this conversation with this lady, and she had 2 shopping bags hovering above the ground, so like not sitting on the ground. She had 1 foot out of the conversation, and she kept trying to look at her watch and like move her bags across her hips. I was just trying to be like, no, don't go, in my mind, and just give her all this information and not let her leave. But I was like, dude, slow down. Her nonverbals are screaming at you right now. Let's listen to them. So I stopped what I was saying, and I said, hey, it looks like you have to go. I want to respect that, but do you just have another minute? There's something really powerful that I want to talk about on this screen. And she goes, hey, I really appreciate that. I actually do have a lunch meeting to get to, but yeah, I got another minute. She puts her bags down, puts her foot back in the conversation, and we ended up having like another 25-minute combo. Complete BS, this lady, that I know of. And we had this amazing conversation. She took veganism seriously, wanted to try Challenge 22, ended in a hug, and like walked the other direction from the restaurant she said she was going to go to. But because I was mindful of her nonverbals, she wasn't thinking, oh, this dude's watching my feet and my arms and my bags. She just felt listened to. She felt like I was valuing and respecting her space, her time, her energy. And when people feel like that is being respected along with what they're saying, they'll give you anything. They're like, hey, this person respects me right now and trusts me and values my time. So yes, I'm more likely to give you another minute. I've had people say, no, I don't have a minute. I really have to go. I'm like, hey, I really appreciate the time. Thank you. But at least they leave with a nice taste in their mouth saying, hey, this person wasn't just trying to unload dairy industry on me. Like, try, be tactful with it, but if their nonverbals are screaming at you, listen to them. The other thing that I love is mirroring and matching. Puts a smile on my face because it was just such a funny story for me, maybe not for everyone else. But in business and sales, mirroring and matching is sort of mimicking what someone else's nonverbals are doing, just subconsciously. That makes someone feel, you know, more respected, valued, like we're listening to them non-verbally. Don't like robot them if you did summer camp where you had to mirror people's hands and stuff. But if someone's kind of speaking a little bit quieter, maybe bring your tone down a little and speak a little bit more quieter to them. If they're a little bit more energetic and you have that capacity, then maybe amp up your energy level and get a little bit more jazzed and speak with them. In Australia, I wanted to try this in Sydney. Like, everyone I spoke with was like, yeah, like, I've seen this stuff before, and seriously, this day in Sydney was wild because it was Bondi Beach. And so I was like, let's try this. I was like, have you seen this footage before, bro? Like, and they were, I don't usually use profanity, but some people were, and I was like, yeah, this is some messed up shit, you know? Like, and that was, shit was bad for me. And so I like brought my tone to like their level and my style and my mannerisms, and it was so cool because it was like I was friends with all of them, and we were laughing and joking, and not laughing at the content, but we were able to talk about more confronting topics with a little bit more ease and a little bit more pleasure. I'm not saying go up to everyone and be like, yeah, yo, what's up? But like, it was really cool. I enjoyed it, and I did that a lot in sales, so I just found that it really worked because it goes with that rapport, that relationship building. It just showed them that, hey, like I was one of them. I'm not trying to be this preachy, entitled, know-it-all vegan. I'm just trying to get to know you better and to try to, help you open up your mind and heart to something. And let's just chill out. Let's have this conversation. But that's very rare. That only happened once in Sydney for a full cube, but it was so cool. I felt like a surfer after that. I was a surfer, but it was cool. So that's the second one. So you have ask well-planned, open-ended questions. Get that information. 2 is listen. Listen to what they have to say, verbally and non-verbally, so that you can really store onto that information, because that's the key. It's when you're actively listening, now you're compartmentalizing. Now you're holding bits of information from that conversation. Maybe they said something about their home life that you were able to store. Maybe they had a friend in college that was vegan. Now you're putting that in here. You're like, hey, I got all this information to use throughout this conversation. So the third one is understand. One of my favorite ones. This is the empathy. This is really the rapport building. This is the understanding where people are coming from. This is the trying to put yourself back in their shoes. This is one of the hardest things for vegans to do, for vegan activists. I don't understand where they're coming from. I want them to go vegan right now. How could you not see this stuff and go vegan? This is where what we talked about last night, I think to a couple people, is regaining that perspective. Putting back on those glasses, the lenses that you used to look through before you were vegan. Because a lot of us, we wake up to this horrific industry, we become a vegan activist, we become passionate, and we lose that perspective. And we're like, hey, no, how could you not be vegan? I'm doing it, how could you not? Forgetting that you used to maybe hunt, myself, fish, eat a lot of animals. Because has anyone here been vegan since birth? I always have to ask, because one guy in Estonia, everything that I was going to say after that does not apply to someone who's been vegan their whole life. And he goes, I was like, how old are you? He's like, 45, I've been vegan my whole life. I was like, dude, mad respect, but don't listen to anything I'm about to say right now. So he kind of just threw me for a loop. But how many of you went vegan overnight? So for anyone who didn't raise your hand, you had your own journey to veganism. But to everyone who raised your hand, you still had your own journey to veganism. So regain that perspective, put those glasses back on, and try to put yourself back in their shoes. It's very hard to do, especially in the moment, especially if someone's a little bit more confronting. But what this does is it helps put things back on the same playing field, same level, a walk in their shoes. Because what happens is, sadly, when we do vegan outreach, instantly, just by having the word vegan in your Instagram bio, if someone sees it, they instantly feel judged. You You don't even have to say anything to them because they feel like their moral compass is being questioned, which it is, but they feel judged because they're judging themselves really. That's what they're projecting. So sadly, when we line up to go do vegan outreach, there is this me versus you, vegan versus non-vegan, entitled, preachy, know-it-all to knowing nothing. There is this us versus them mentality. If you want to see a successful conversation happen, we need to eliminate this me versus you really quickly. And the way you do that is by putting yourself back in their shoes and coming from a place of understanding. Because when we come from a place of understanding, when we say that we understand someone, now that wall gets dropped a little bit. So something happens in the conversations that right when you ask, do you eat animals? This is a very judging, non-understanding question. People usually will take a step back, they'll see them tense up a little, they'll look at the screen, they'll be like, yeah, I eat animals. And I'll be like, hey, I'm not coming from a place of judgment. I used to eat animals as well. Or hey, I totally understand how you feel. I used to hunt. Hey, I totally get it. I used to fish. You can word it however is comfortable for you. But what this does, sometimes I'll put my hand on their shoulder if it's a really nice conversation, or I'll put my hand on my heart, like, hey, totally understand how you feel. What that does, you'll see it in their eyes. The judgment drops a little bit. They don't feel as judged, and one level of that wall gets brought down, and that's perfect. We want to be able to see over that wall of all that conditioning that they're putting up. And when we do come from that place of understanding, now that person's like, all right, this person isn't perfect. For some reason, I feel like all bystanders, when I do vegan outreach, think that I've been vegan my whole life. I don't know if anyone else gets this. They think I'm just this like perfect, like vegan child that has just been born. No, like I dealt with my own stuff, like more so than most. Like, yeah, I've done it myself. And to eliminate that is so powerful, because then they're like, woof, this person isn't perfect. This person isn't preachy and entitled, because you're following these steps. You're coming from a place of understanding, and now they're going to be giving you more information. Respect, trust, and rapport to the next level when you come from a place of understanding. And it's as simple as saying something like, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. Or, I get it. I remember how hard it was to give up A, B, or C. And sometimes I don't want to say it has to be a white lie, I'm not for lying, but it's hard in the moment to come from this place of understanding. It's hard when someone's giving you some negative feedback about what's happening on this footage, and it's hard to put those lenses back on. You don't want to. But so what I do is before every outreach conversation, before the day, I'm just like, dude, you used to live like this. This used to be you. You used to contribute to it. Not in a negative way to bring me down, but more in an uplifting way. I snap out of it quick. I spend about a minute just being like, dude, this was you. Now you've changed. Now you're impacting people positively. You're helping the world. You're helping the animals. I motivate myself a little, and I'm like, all right, now whatever anyone gives me, chill out. Whatever anyone gives me, I can just go back to a place of, hey, that used to be you. I can't judge. I'll even say that to people. Like if it's a more playful conversation, like, hey, I can't judge you. I used to do it myself. I can't. I mean, we can judge anyone we want, but you get the point. Like for the conversation, it just really helps the success of the conversation when you do that. Because once these thoughts are eliminated, once this judgment is eliminated, the conversation is like, you're open up to pretty much talk about anything, because they're not feeling judged, and they're not feeling like we're sitting there being like, you're not vegan? You eat animals? When you eliminate that, it's so amazing what happens, and you'll see a more playful energy come into the conversation. You'll see their shoulders drop. You see their eyes get brighter. Like it just happens because they're not feeling judged. We hate feeling judged. We hate it as human beings. So eliminate that, vegan versus non-vegan. And the toughest time to regain that perspective and come from a place of understanding is when handling objections. And there's a way that I learned like 10 months ago that I've been using now in every single outreach conversation to come from a place of understanding and provide a solution in the moment of this handling objection. It's called feel, felt, found. Has anyone heard of feel, felt, found? Maybe some people feel, felt, found. So basically when someone gives you an objection, when someone's like, yeah, but lions, or Jesus ate fish and this and that, if we come from a place of say, no, idiot, like, do you know about lions? Do you know why they do this and why they do that? That's judgment right there. That's not coming from a place of understanding. But even if you just give them the information from you, they still feel like, oh, you just know it all, and how do you know all this information? So I didn't come up with a way, someone did, and now I use it, basically on how to take them from this objection to providing them with the solution without making them feel judged. And this is the feel, felt, found. So I'm going to give you the example of it first, and then I'll explain it. So this might be really good for social work, if you haven't heard about it, because I'm addicted to feel, felt, found. So if someone says, I can't go vegan because I can't get all my protein from plants. sure we all get that from time to time. So the simplest way would be you're an idiot, kick him in the shin, strangle him, and be like, are you dumb? That's not the best way to go about your outreach conversations. So how do you do it? Feel, felt, found. So someone go, give me the objection. Say it to me. Role play. Okay, just kidding. So I'll give myself. So, oh hey, I can't go vegan because I can't get enough protein from plants. Hey, I totally understand how you feel. Before I was vegan, I used to exercise a lot. I thought I needed to get all of my protein from eating only animal products. Actually, a lot of people that I speak with at these demos, a lot of my family and friends, they felt that same way too. They used to think all the time that they needed to get their essential nutrients from eating only animal products. But actually what they found was, after a lot of research and doing it themselves, is that you can actually get all of your essential nutrients from eating a broad spectrum of plants, minus B12, you know? And I don't know if you've heard that, if you heard the feel, felt, found in there, but I'll say it again. So I understand how you feel. So what this is the first level of bringing down that wall. This is the empathy, this is the rapport. I understand how you feel. Now makes them feel like you're on the same page. I understand how you feel. When I used to exercise back in the day, before I was vegan, I thought that I needed to get all of my animal products, or my protein from eating animal products. Now they're like, hey, this person, I'm not the only one. This person felt it as well. This person used to think that way. The next step is putting them in this objective group. Because before the objection, it's me versus them, right? After I say, hey, I totally understand how you feel, it's no one versus no one. We're just on the same page. But now to make it even more effective, make it a bunch of people against me. So this is where felt comes in. You put them part of this invisible, big, objective group. Hey, a lot of people I speak with at these demos, and I'll usually point at people at the cube, point at bystanders, and they'll like look around as if I'm really talking about these people. Or actually a lot of my family and friends felt that same way too. So now it's another level of understanding. Hey, they're not alone. They're not alone with me. Now they're not alone that there's a majority of people that thought that same way. Now it's providing them with the solution, the answer. But not from the preachy entitled vegan, but from this objective group. But what they found was, simple word, but what they found was, after a lot of research and actually doing it themselves, they could actually get all of their essential nutrients from eating a broad spectrum of plants. Now the solution was provided, but it came from this objective invisible group, and if you pointed at people at the cube, they'll actually look again and be like, wow. Like they'll feel like they're not alone and this is amazing. Now you just gave them the same, shake their neck and be like, plants, blah, 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 but you provided them with a solution and made them feel understood and made them feel like they're not alone. Same thing happens with, but lions though. Hey, totally understand how you feel. Like, before I went vegan, I actually read a lot of stuff that said that, we're like carnivores and we need to eat this and we need to do that. But actually what a lot of people that I speak with have felt too is that we need to do this, we need to do that. But what they found was, after looking into it, we're actually not omnivore carnivores. Our body isn't set up for this stuff. And then you can give them all the information but it came from this objective group. So feel, felt, found is great. It's definitely a tactic that takes time to learn. Go Google feel, felt, found, and you'll find so many different articles and books and stuff written on this. Most of it's in the business world, but you can just apply it straight to vegan outreach, research it, write your own sentences out. What I like to do is just handle every objection in feel, felt, found. And it's so amazing the results that you'll get from it. I use it in every outreach conversation that has an objection. Every one. It's so amazing. And no one has ever been like, are you feel, felt, found to me right now? Like, if you do it in a tactful way, they're not going to know. Because instead of saying feel, it's very powerful to use feel, but you can say, hey, I used to think that too. Same way of saying feel. Basically, you just want people to understand that you did it as well. A lot of people that I spoke with, a lot of people that did this felt that same way too. They used to think that exact same way as we did and make it about like, okay, now we're part of this big group, right? But what they found was, or what information that they gathered was, you can really turn it to use whatever words you want. Feel, felt, found just seems to be the easiest. So use that. And now we'll take a little break because people are tinkling or whatever else. Coffee, tea, we'll do, it's 12:42, so we'll do 12:50. We'll start up again. Feel free to hang out and chill if you want. Oh yeah, sorry, live stream part 2 in a little fight. Mission's over with. Let me get back to where I was. Yes, so we are moving on. Oh, I like that. Thank you for actively listening to my talk.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So the first three, we ask, really great, well-planned open-ended questions, listen, actively listen to those answers and information, store that information, and then understand where people are coming from, help take away that me versus them, that vegan versus non-vegan mentality. The fourth one is educate, and there's two parts to this education. First and foremost, the simplistic one, where we all need to start educate yourself. Or yourself, if you want. Educate a little head. Educate yourself. There's so many resources out there. Documentaries, videos, books, YouTubes, ebooks, threads, people within the community. We all have different skill sets, different traits, which we'll talk about tomorrow. Let's utilize all of that info that we have to educate ourselves. Because in the beginning of outreach, I'm sure you've all experienced it, it's a lot more stressful to go do an outreach conversation when you don't feel you know all the information, or when you don't feel like you're confident enough to handle this objection, or maybe you don't know about this Genesis 46:29 and 129, or like Abraham 13:24. Like, if you don't know all this stuff, it's okay if you don't know all the information. It's about what you do next that's so important. Is you educate yourself. So in the conversation, there's been times when I didn't know the answer. You can do a couple things. Hey, I don't know the answer. Thank you for bringing up that information. You want to tell me a little bit more? You want to educate me? Appreciate that. Like, people seem to understand you a little bit more and look at you more like a normal human being if you don't know everything, right? So it's totally okay to say, hey, I don't know that. I spend a lot of my time focusing on the ethical side of veganism and not the religious side. So I'd love it if you gave me a little bit more information. Most of the time they're going to be like, they don't know more information about it. They just wanted to try to trick you or stump you. But then go home and learn that. Go home and educate yourself so that you do know that information. Keep a couple of those religious texts on your phone so that you can show them or have that information if you want. Educate yourself is so important because we exhaust a lot of energy and resources trying to rack our brains to find all of that information. That's really hard. So educate yourself. You will be able to speak more fluently, speak with more conviction and more confidence when you feel like you're a professional on the topic. How easy is it to talk about veganism in regards to ethics? I think all of you are professionals on the ethical side of animal agriculture and veganism. We can speak from the heart. We can speak the truth. We know what happens. Maybe you don't know the specific machinery and what it's called, but you know how to speak from the heart about veganism from the ethical side. When we start to become more of a professional on the topic and we educate ourselves, not only do we speak better, but we're taken more seriously. We listen to professionals. Sometimes we take professionals' advice without even getting the credibility. Doctors, maybe, you know, like our whole life, food pyramids, like we take people's advice when we think they're more professional on the topic. So the more professional we get on the topic, the more serious people take us and the more receptive they are to our information. So educate yourself. Even if you have to bring up your phone. I had a conversation where this guy in Sydney didn't know, an activist didn't know this answer to whether or not the gas chamber was humane according to the RSPCA in Australia. So he's like, hey, Josh, can you come over here? And he's like, do you know this? And I go, I don't. Can we check Google? And the man was like, yeah, absolutely. And then they talked for a little. I looked at Google and I was like, yeah, actually it's considered under standard practice for the RSPCA. He goes, oh, thank you for looking into that. We talked for a little bit more and I was like, hey, let me know if you have any other questions. And I left and let them continue. People are so okay with the fact that you aren't knowledgeable on everything under the sun. But what you do next is important. Educate yourself. Find the information. Say, hey, I got a nutritionist over here. Bring them into the conversation. Let's use the people that we have with us. So even if you know your community or in briefings, if anyone's got a really valuable skill that they bring to the table, if you have a nutritionist, if you have a doctor, if you have an archaeologist to talk about, you know, Paleolithic era, that sort of stuff. I had one of those, which is really cool to use her. Not use her, but like use her in the conversation. Have her help me. Utilize this stuff. If people know different languages, that's always nice. So maybe that you don't know how to speak a certain language or there's a word that they can't quite get if they're a tourist. Use the people that we have, use the resources that we have, educate yourself first. And then the second part of the education is now educate them. Educate them, give them the information, provide them with all of those juicy bits of info that you just want to scream out and you want to get them to understand. But there's a certain way that I choose to educate now. And I thought it was the lecture mentality. And the lecture does work. We see it work in college, right? We see it work in school. Sit down, teach your lectures, you absorb some information, or all of it, or none of it, if you're like me in school. I didn't apply myself. Didn't share that in my story. So, off topic on old Joshua, educate them, but try not to do it in a lecture. Like I said, you could probably still give enough information by lecturing someone and have them leave taking veganism seriously. It does work. Lecturing does work. Some people like that. But I wanted to find a way to take my education, my information giving to the next level. So I used all the strategies that I talked about by having this conversation with them. But then I came up with this tactic or this strategy called filling in the gaps or filling in the blanks. Let's call it filling in the gaps. And I wanted to find a more strategic or tactful way to provide people with information. Because I think that 100% of the time, if someone gives you a really powerful bit of information or doesn't give you a powerful bit of information that you can use later on, like the story with the dairy, see, not the dairy lady, the story with the lady I was speaking about the dairy industry with, that story from 2 strategies ago. She didn't tell me about what happened to the baby cows, so I stored onto that information. I think that 10 times out of 10, there is always a more strategic place to input that info. I could have just, right as she was done telling me about the dairy industry, say, hey, you know a lot, but there was also something that you missed. We talked about the dairy, or baby cows, and gone there. It might have been powerful, but store onto powerful bits of information because there will be a time to fill in the gaps. And so basically, I think that there are always times throughout the conversation to provide the information that is going to emotionally connect them to what they're going to get from that answer, or from the question that I'm asking, from the information that I'm giving, a more strategic time to use it. So when you have all these little bits of information, this is why it's so important to store it in your mind. I stored it there and I was like, all right, babies, babies, babies. I kept on thinking babies. And I was like, I asked a question, hey, tell me a little bit more about your home life. If it's a really comfortable environment, I said, tell me a little bit more about your home life. She started telling me about her daughter. And then I was like smiling inside. I was like, all right, here we go. Now it clicked. Daughter, baby cows. Then she started to tell me about how much she loves her daughter, and how much she loves her daughter, and how much she loves her daughter, how much she wants the best future for her daughter. And if anything ever happens to her daughter, that like her daughter is her life, which you get by now. And I let her talk, and I loved hearing that come from her, because then I was able to say, hey, it's so amazing that you have so much love for your daughter. I love seeing people who can extend that much love to another being, right? But my gears are turning. I'm like, now's the time to use it. Now I have this information that I can fill in the gap. I can give her this powerful bit of information that's hopefully going to help her make that connection in the moment. So I was starting to wind down the conversation, and she was emotionally charged to talk about her daughter already. But in the beginning, she had told me that giving up dairy was one of the hardest things for her. So I said, we talked about the dairy industry a lot, and we talked about your home life and this and that. So do you think veganism is for you now? Do you think that you can actually give up dairy? She goes, I just don't think I could give up dairy right now. And I go, you know what? I totally get it. I used to feel that same way. Like, I went kind of feel, felt, found, and talked to her a little bit more about how giving up dairy was hard for me, even though I was lactose intolerant. I still ate dairy. I still took pills to eat dairy. And I said, actually, there was something that we forgot to talk about in the dairy industry. And I totally slipped my mind. Kind of white lie there. It didn't slip my mind. I held on to it. But you could just stop it saying, hey, we totally forgot to talk about something. About what happens to the baby cows in the dairy industry. And she goes, she just slumped down. As all I had to say was baby cows, and her whole physiology just changed. And so that's when I knew that this whole filling in the gap thing was so powerful, that I could have given her that information before she talked about her child, and she might not have been as emotionally charged or connected. And then she goes, what happens to the baby cows? And then I took her down to, do you know what happens to the cows in the dairy industry? Do you know why cows produce milk? I asked all these questions, took her down this process, and then she kept on she was slumping lower and lower. It was really sad. I wasn't laughing, but I just felt for her. I really did, because she was connecting so deep emotionally to what I was saying, to the questions that I was asking. And I think it's only because she had just spent 5 minutes telling me about her love for her daughter. She was making her own connection. I didn't have to do anything but put the piece of information there by asking questions. And at the end of it, she was like, so you're saying that they get killed? And then I was able to explain to her a little bit more about why and what happens. And she goes, I can't do it. And I go, what do you mean you can't do it? She goes, I can't do dairy anymore. You have to be vegan. And I go, it's so amazing to hear. Inside I'm like, woo! Don't do that. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can celebrate with the people. But I was still feeling for her. I really was, because she was having deep down inside this really heartfelt emotional connection. And I go, hey, I didn't know about this industry. I didn't know that this happens to these baby cows. And I didn't even mention anything about her daughter. Like, we didn't have to. You don't have to bring that back. She already made that connection. And I go, it's so powerful that you made that connection because it's something that most of us don't see, but it's something that is a big catalyst for a lot of people that once they find out about what happens, dairy is gone. And it's easy for them when they link that pain to that. So that's what I meant by filling in the gaps. And I had another time where basically the easiest way to understand this is if someone, most of the time it's going to be when someone doesn't tell you about what they know. Because you're actively listening, you're going to uncover that. Always, always, always save that for another time. There's always going to be a better time or a more strategic, I don't want to say better, there potentially is going to be a more strategic time to use that when they're emotionally charged. And that's up to you to get them there. By asking the right questions, how does this make you feel? Did you know what happened to the baby cows? Tell me about your home life, like this and that. When you're getting people emotionally charged, it's going to be a lot easier for them to make the connection when you just fill that information in for them. So the other time that happened was when I realized this was right, was about the egg industry. And this lady told me about what she knew about the egg industry. And she didn't mention anything about what happens to the baby cows, but she also didn't mention anything about how unhealthy eggs were. And the reason why this jumped out to me is because she led the conversation with how much she cares about her health and how she has high cholesterol and her family has high cholesterol and heart disease and this and that. So I already was triggered in my mind thinking, all right, health is going to be her pain point. So when I asked about the egg industry, she mentioned nothing about how unhealthy eggs were, but she eats 2 every day. So I was like, all right, I'm going to store onto that information. And later on, it always ends with, yeah, I just love eggs too much. And I was like, well, you know what? We forgot to talk about something in the egg industry that's super powerful. Did you actually know how unhealthy eggs are? She goes, eggs are unhealthy? And I'm like, I know. I didn't know either. Like, this is something that not many people know, right? And she goes, what's unhealthy? I thought they had protein. I was like, they do. But do you know what else they have? She goes, no. And I was like, cholesterol. I didn't say it like that, but I was like, cholesterol. And she goes, eggs have cholesterol? And I was like, yeah, they have like over 150 something milligrams of dietary cholesterol per egg, and it's actually illegal in the States to call them, to use marketing terms, part of the healthy diet, this and that. And she goes, no way. She's like, I'm on 2 cholesterol lowering medications. I'm like, I know. We talked about that. Like, I get it. That's why I'm giving you this information. But she was so emotionally connected because we had just got done talking about her poor, or her high cholesterol, that when I slipped this information in, when I filled in a gap with that, it was powerful for her. I basically was poking her pain point with the information at that time that I thought she needed it. And then she was like, are you saying I can lower my cholesterol by not eating eggs? I was like, yeah, totally. Like, just stop eating eggs. And she goes, I can't eat eggs anymore. And it was like just such a beautiful conversation. I mean, I think both of these conversations happened like a week apart. And I was like, I'm onto something. This is how we need to be thinking now as activists, as outreachers. How can we give people really valuable information at the right time? And when I say right time, I mean when you might think as the activist that they're ready to hear it. When they're, like I say, most emotionally charged. And I lead up with a few questions, and I'm ready to close the conversation. I'm like, how can I get them thinking about something that's going to emotionally attach them to the information they haven't given me, if that makes sense. And then you just give it. Because like I said, I could have given the dairy lady, the information right after she told me about the dairy industry in the beginning, but she would have not she might not have been as charged emotionally because she didn't talk about her daughter yet. Always, there's going to be a better time to use it. So just try to keep that in your mind. It's a very difficult tactic, but how got to ask questions, listen, store information, and find the right time to use it, it gets easy. You just start knowing that, like, hey, it's a juicy bit of information. I'm going to save that for like a boom. It's kind of like you're jabbing. If you want to look at it in a boxing term, you're jabbing all conversation. Left hook, that was right. Then you go for the knockout, It's kind of bad because some of us might want to knock out some people on outreach, but jab, jab, right hook, boom, you give them a bit of information when you think that they need it most. So that's the educate part. I love it. I think it's just always working on how we can educate people more effectively, and that is a tactic that works for me. Last one, and then we'll do a little Q&A and grub out on some food. This is my favorite one. This is inspire. This is the call to action. This is the what's next. Another duh, Joshua. People are like, duh, we got to get people to what's next. But you'd be so surprised. So many people that I've shadowed and listened to, not in a negative way, just lack a very powerful call to action. We spend so much time invested in these conversations, giving people all this information. That looks really good. We give people all this powerful information, but then we leave them with like a, oh, here, try challenge 22, which is a great call to action, don't get me wrong, but I'll preface that with, in the beginning of my outreach, I thought every conversation ended in a, here, try challenge 22, which is a free 22-day vegan challenge on Facebook. I thought that was just what I needed to do, and that was the best thing I needed to do. 2 stories jumped out that changed my whole perception on that. But a lot of people lack a strong call to action. Have any of you seen Chasing Coral on Netflix? Okay, it's always like 0%. It's a good documentary. Basically, it's a documentary that talks about how human beings are messing up the coral reef, and now all the coral reef are dying, and it's kind of depressing, but really cool and beautiful. But at the end, like throughout this documentary, I'm like, I want to do more for the coral reef. I want to like get into scuba diving now and like save the coral and like do all this stuff. How do I do it? So I was waiting for my call to action. I was so charged, and I didn't know I was waiting for it. But at the end of the movie, I was waiting for that. What do I do? And it was like, visit www.chasingcoral.com. Nope, didn't visit the website because it wasn't as strong of a call to action as I needed. It didn't hit any of my pain points. It was just enough challenge to where I was like, no, my computer's over there. I'll just do it another time. I needed something that was going to pretty much hold my hand. That's kind of how I see Challenge 22 or the resource cards that we give for AV. Sometimes when we just give a card to someone and let them walk away, maybe they don't know what to do with it. Or maybe there's so much information on there that nothing's tailored to them. So that's when I came up with the concept of this custom tailored call to action. This birthday present of a call to action, something that is specified, specific, either or, choose whichever one you want, for that individual that you're speaking with. So 2 things jumped out. Had this really sad but very powerful conversation with this kid. He's like 14, so much love in his heart, was against everything he was seeing on my invisible screen, and it was visible at the time. And I was like, wow, this kid's so knowledgeable and he has so much love in his heart, but when I asked about him going vegan, he says, I can't go vegan. And I was like, oh, is it going to be like lions? And what excuse is he going to give me? And he goes, my mom won't let me. He says, my mom hates vegans. She said she'll ground me if I talk about veganism. She monitors my search history and won't let me look at vegan stuff online or watch documentaries. She buys all the food. Don't use feel, felt, found in this situation. I do truly think that it is very difficult for some people in life to go vegan at this specific point in time. And this kid is probably close to impossible, if he's living at home, if he wants a roof over his head at his home. So the call to action wasn't giving him an AV card and saying, hey, try challenge 22, buddy, everything will be okay, which is like sort of what I wanted to do. Or, hey, go watch What the Hell, everything will be okay when his mom monitors Netflix, I couldn't give him that. So that's when the gears started to turn. I was like, this kid needs something special for him. So I whipped out a card. It's got a blank white side on one of the sides. Got a pen this time. Outreach tip number 106, carry a pen. And I started to write down this custom tailored call to action for him. 4 steps. First step, I wrote down 1, circled it. I kind of stood next to him instead of in front of him to show him what I was writing. You can do this when you're underlining stuff or showing people documentaries. Get next to them, show them, and help them decode this beautiful piece of information. They're like, all right, number 1, I want you to believe in yourself. I wanted him to feel empowered first and foremost. I wanted him to feel like he was on the right side of history, and I told him, do you see everyone here wearing black? Either in the cube or out here, they all believe what you believe. And this is so powerful. And I didn't want him to leave the conversation thinking that he was believing something that was like incorrect, or that he wasn't part of a big team, or he wasn't part of the social justice movement. I wanted him to feel empowered. So I said, step 1, and do this for everyone, make people feel empowered. Step 1, feel amazing and know that you're on the right side of history. Know that you have the truth on your side. He got a big smile on his face. He was like, you know what? He felt a lot more comfortable, I think, inside, just judging by the conversation. He felt that he was part of something bigger, which is so beautiful. I said, step 2, I want you to, whenever you're at a friend's house, go on their computer and research everything that you can about what it means to be vegan. And I gave him some YouTubes to watch and some articles and some blogs. I said, become like a semi-professional on what it means to be vegan. Because what happens is when he's trying to have conversations with his mom, and this happens a lot with younger children and parents, is they automatically think that they know more information than their kids. So the kids feel disempowered, but they don't have the information, and they can't have that conversation and speak confidently because they don't know a lot of the information. So I wanted him to prep himself for having that conversation in the future. Educate yourself the same way we do for us. become more knowledgeable, so that next time mom has that conversation with you, you're like, actually mom, according to the World Health Organization, and then he has this information that he can go back with facts and has maybe articles and videos to show them. So become educated, I told him, sneakily, don't do it at home, and get yourself with all the information prepped so that next time you have that conversation with your mom or with anyone, you feel more confident. Because we know when we feel more confident, we feel more confident. It's awesome. And we can do more, we can speak more, we can speak on behalf of the animals a lot more effectively when we have that confidence within. And then number 3, I said, when you feel ready, I want you to ask your mom, have a conversation, put your heart on the table, and just ask for support. Don't ask her to go vegan. Don't ask her to change the entire house and this and that. Just ask for support. Because a lot of people, we become so passionate, we go in there heavy just saying, go vegan, we want you to be vegan. I'm not saying don't try to get your family to be vegan. I'm just saying in this specific case, get the support first. Get her to at least buy you some veggies and tofu. Like, get her to not monitor your search history. Get her to allow you to watch a documentary. Like, this is what I mean by the support. Then later in time, hopefully she's seen that progression and will naturally open up and have conversation. Get the support first. And this might apply for some of you as well. Like with my grandpa, I used to argue all the time about it because I wanted him to go vegan. And then I realized he's 85, different era. I'm always going to try. He's the long game. I'll still check in from time to time. But why don't I just get support first? Now he only goes to vegan restaurants with me and supports the Liberation Pledge. He only will eat vegan in the house, which is really cool, minus something if I'm in the other room, which is really cool. He'll get up and leave into the other room. And I got that support, which allows me to feel more confident and comfortable with myself. So I'm not exhausting a lot of unnecessary energy and resources battling. And then I check in from time to time, hey, Grandpa, you going vegan yet? You know? And do that where I can divert my energy more to the low-hanging fruit, the short game, the people that we can get those small wins with, which I'll talk a lot about tomorrow. So number 3 was ask for support. Just say, Mom, be real. Can you just support me? Even if it's, Mom, can you just buy me some veggies? I will cook my own food. Like, just ask for that. And then 4th, I said, if you get this support, I think I said when. I'm all about positive intentions. When you get this support, ask her to watch Okja. If you don't know what Okja is, I think it's the best movie to watch to trick any family member into watching something that's going to be very powerful and vegan forward. Because it's like 3/4 of the movie, it's like half CGI, animated. You're building this loving relationship with this big pig and this girl, and then activists come in and you're like, yeah, we love activists trying to save animals. And then it's like CGI slaughterhouse. And you're like, oh, wow. And that's powerful. So I think it's a great way to trick family into watching a vegan sort of documentary. And so I gave him this, long story short, I gave him this 4 steps to what he could do. And he walked away with like the biggest smile on his face, big hug. He's like, thank you so much, and walked away because I gave him a call to action that was specific for him, but that also held his hand and that empowered him to actually take a next step. There was something actionable for him. Here, Try Challenge 22 is not actionable because in his mind, he's already just nipped that in the bud. He can't do Facebook. So he's not going to do it. Or when you give a card to someone and just say, yeah, there's all these documentaries and must-reads and must-watches, you're my outreach person. You haven't guessed. Here's all this information, boom. You've seen it. They put it right in the wallet a lot of the times. When they're talking with you, shove their wallet back pockets. They're not going to look at that again. Or when they do, it's how do I decode? It's like Da Vinci's Code. They're like, what do I do here? There's all of this stuff. How do I do it? So give someone a specific call to action. And then the last story that I just think is so powerful, just to show how important this is. The guy I was talking with, his pain point was definitely health. Was only talking about health, and I always like to talk about ethics and make people agree with that because that's how I believe veganism is all about, is 100% ethics. I think health and environment are just great bonuses, but this guy was all about health. Giving him challenge 22 at the end may have worked, but it might not have been something specific for him. So at the end of the conversation, I always like to bring it back to ethics first and have them sort of agree. I'm like, hey, before we end this, like, I noticed that you were watching a lot of this. Like, do you agree that this is animal cruelty? And I like to ask some simple close-ended questions. He goes, yeah. He goes, it's awful. And he started to talk about that. I was like, it's amazing to know that we're on the same page there. And I said before I was closing it, it seems like you're super interested in health. And he goes, I am. As if I wasn't listening to his literally 20 minutes of talking about hell, but he was mentioning a lot of different diseases that his family have gone through and that he's currently dealing with and this and that. So I said, hey, it seems like you're super interested in health. His eyes perked up, he was attentive, he was listening to me, and I was like, now's the call to action. I said, hey, I have this book that changed my life, and I want you to read it. This is your homework. I love using the this is your homework line. I hated homework, I don't know why, but I guess people like checking things off and accomplishing things, so try it. It's great. So I got some homework for you. This book changed my life. It's called The China Study. And I want you to read it, and I promise you it'll change your life. And I took out my pen, I took out the card, I circled it on the card, and I gave him the card. He looks at it, he's like, what's it about? Talked about the China Study because I educated myself and I read it and I knew information. So I told him what the China Study was about, and I started to give him like chapters in there and started to talk about certain diseases that a plant-based diet can sort of prevent, reverse, or treat, ones that he had said. So I was helping, that's another level of making the connection for his mind. I was like, hey, diabetes, high blood pressure, and he started to make those connections. And then he pulls out his phone and starts looking at his phone, and I was like, oh, did I lose him? Am I gonna have to ask him for another minute, blah, blah, blah. And then he shows me his phone, and he's got the China Study on Amazon Prime, and he goes, and he buys the book, which was so cool, and I was like, dude, that's when I got excited. I was like, yeah, I gotta have a hug. You just bought the China Study, like right now, and he goes, yeah, like just, if you said it's going to change my life and it changed your life, like why wouldn't I buy it, right? And this was so amazing. Not saying anytime that you do this, someone's going to buy a book or sit down, open up their laptop and watch a documentary, but you can just see how that when their need is met or their pain point is poked enough, or when something is custom tailored to them, they're more likely to do that call to action. That's holding their hand. I gave him everything he needed. Then I said, when you finish reading that book, because that book's going to get to his doorstep in 2 days. That's amazing. So when you finish reading that book, here's a thing called Challenge 22. This is what it can do for you, and then here's a couple more resources that will talk about health. Here's forks over knives, here's what the hell, and then I circled all these things for him, put some stars on there. So he had this nice little instruction manual after he gets this book on what to do. Because as activists, for me at least, my goal is to do everything that I think I can in the moment so that I can walk away feeling like I did everything that I could for them and for the animals. Because even if it's a 7-minute conversation, a 20-minute conversation, a 3.5-hour conversation, like I want to feel that when I left that conversation, I didn't miss anything. Maybe I didn't say something about a specific industry, but my call to action was sound, and that I spoke on behalf of the animals as effectively as I could. So in regards to the conversation with the kid, I felt like I did everything that I could, and that I set him up for success, because we're not the vegan police, as much as we want to be. We can't follow people home and put on a little siren and check their phone records, and I can't follow people home and do that. Maybe you can, but it's real weird. So I felt after that conversation that I was confident in myself that I gave this kid everything he needed to take it to the next level. And same with this other guy. That's all we can do as activists, because a lot of us carry that weight that, could we have done this, or I could have recommended this. Like, let's eliminate that. Let's just do everything that we can and focus on giving people these custom tailored call to actions. And it might seem difficult, but it's actually really easy if you're following the other strategies. If you're asking great questions and uncovering all this powerful information and listening to people and building rapport, they're going to just be feeding you what they need. And then, most of the time, it's going to be, hey, try Challenge 22. But take it to the next step. Circle it, show them, explain what it's about, tell them about how it works, give them other resources to fall back on. But a lot of the times, there's going to be some other pain points for them. Educate yourself. If it's a student and they're having financial burdens from being a student, recommended, what's her YouTube, Cheap Lazy Vegan or something like that? I think there's a YouTuber called Lazy Cheap Vegan or Cheap Lazy Vegan, and recommend that to them. And write that down on the card because it's not on there. And give them something actionable for them that's sort of bridging the gap between their pain points and like what they're not able to get. If you just like, hey, watch Okja. Okay, Okja's a cool movie, but how is that affecting me? We like to do things for ourselves. So that's where the custom tailored call to action comes in. It's really, really powerful. But if you can't think of those custom tailored calls to action, just leave with a call to action. Any conversation you have. Even in an Uber. Is there Uber here? Yeah. Okay, cool. I never know. So I was in an Uber, and my friends always like to put me in the front seat, even though I don't want to do outreach all the time. They just think I do. And so I had a conversation, like a 10-minute Uber, and I was leaving the conversation. We had a great little combo, and he was talking about environment, and I got out, and I was just leaving. And I was like, oh, no call to action. I just had a great little conversation, but we need to always be focusing on leaving someone with a what's next. what can I do next? And so I looked back in the car and was like, we talked about environment, right? And he goes, yeah, I love the environment. I was like, I had a card because we were going to a cube. I was like, I threw the card at him and it was like, cards fly everywhere. And he grabs it and I was like, watch Cowspiracy. And he goes, Cowspiracy, is it on Netflix? I was like, yes, it's on the card. And he looks at the card, he goes, thank you, and he left. Even something as simple as that, we just have to be doing it. Even in your social media posts. You write this really powerful post about looking into the eyes of this animal in a truck going into a slaughterhouse. Put a little call to action at the end. Because you never know who's going to read the whole thing. And you never know what's going to resonate with them. Always think about what's next. Because the what's next is like our passive income. What's next is like, it's working for us when we sleep. Like, we don't know if they're going to take what we said and actually use those strategies to change and to go vegan. That's amazing. We want to create as many vegan actives as we can. So custom tailored call to action or just a call to action nonetheless. And every convo, I can't stress this enough, with a something for them. And then I always end it, I take it to the next step. 2 more things I do is I make them feel empowered before they leave. Hey, I really appreciate this conversation. Love speaking with people who have a lot of love in their hearts. And I just wanted to just remind you how much power you truly have. And I'll just say, a lot of people think that they can't make a difference, but one person can. Every meal you can, every day you can, every second you can, because sometimes people just feel disempowered. They feel like, oh, like, what could I do? Like, so many animals, you already said 56 billion animals are being killed. What can I do, right? To one. Explain that one, you're making a difference to that one. So it's so important. And then lastly, I end in a hug. You don't have to, but I would say majority of my conversations I go for the hug, and I love it because it puts a smile on my face. Don't try to hug the conversations that don't go well. I tried it once. I was like, hey, you want to hug it out? No. I was like, all right, it was fun. Like I had a good ending conversation, but a lot of the times people will be like, hey, and what was your name? Or they'll go for the handshake. Like, I'm Joshua. I'm a hugger. And I'll just open my arms, and then they get a big smile on their face. They give me a hug. And you don't have to do this. I'm not saying you have to, but it's really nice because what it does is 2 things. It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel really positive, and so that I can carry that over to the next outreach conversation. What it does for them is it puts a big smile on their face, and then they leave the conversation thinking, I just watched slaughterhouse footage, spoke with an activist, got a hug. Why am I feeling so good? Like, why am I walking away? So it also paints a really good picture on who we are as activists. I think there is this negative, picture painted, right? We have this really negative vision of us, and a lot of people will voice that to us. So I think anything that we can do to sort of change that vision is really, really cool. I do it selfishly for me. I like hugging, but I would say 40% of it's for them too, which is really great. It just puts a really nice vision in my mind and sets me up for success. If you're into priming your headspace, it sets me up for my next conversation really nice. And I love hugging people. Makes a good photo. If someone catches you hugging an outreach bystander. Social media 101. And I think that's it. I just wanted to say thank you again for being here. I know this is a lot of information, and a lot of you are probably hungry for this great food, but it just means the world to me to not only just be here with you all, but to be able to share my insight and perspective. My insight and perspective is only one set of insight and perspective that works for me. There's so many other people out there doing it. We can all learn from each other. So just share any successes, any failures. I don't think there's ever failures, but things that are challenging. So share that with each other so you can always grow. Because I think that's what I've learned the most. It's just constantly challenging ourselves, growing as activists, because this is an ever-growing movement. So we can do that. And I know this is so much information. So how many of you are going to the Cube today? Yeah, sweet, cool. So if you're not, you should. No. Don't focus on using all of these today. It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff that I talked about tonight. Yes, it's really simple today, not tonight. A lot of it's really simple, but what I recommend people doing is just honing in on something that they really want to work on first. So I'll go back through this stuff really quickly, but if for some reason, this is what most people start with, if they just want to learn how to ask more questions, make that today. Try to not talk as much. Try to not lecture as much. Try to ask more questions. Come get the questions from me. Maybe you wrote them down. Talk to me in the middle of a conversation and say, hey, what's a good question I can ask? Or anyone else here, just start focusing on asking more questions today and see what it does to your overall conversations. If you just want to be a better listener, which is what a lot of people want to do, focus on listening today. Go in there and just like make eye, don't like stare at people the whole time, you know. Give them some eye space, but focus on more actively listening to what people are saying, but more importantly, storing really powerful bits of information. Really try to work on putting pieces of that information that that you're listening to and storing that in for later on in the conversation. That's the strategy number 2. Or you can just focus on understanding more. Really coming from a place of having empathy, of putting yourself back in their shoes, of trying to, this really is something that a lot of aggressive militant vegans want to focus on first. I used to be there. I used to yell at everyone. And so that was like my first step is I want to focus on cooling it down a little. I want to focus on being more present. I want to focus on reminding myself that I used to hunt and I used to be in their shoes. And that helped me just have a more calm demeanor when I had those conversations. Or if it's education, focus on filling in those blanks, and then everyone should focus on the call to action today. That's something we can do in conjunction with any of this. Really make some strong call to action today, so that when you're done with each conversation, you feel really good about what call to action you just gave them. Not weak, you feel really good, you feel strong. If you just were like, oh, here's challenge 22, I get it if you're new to outreach. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to have it be this immaculate call to action. Do what you feel comfortable with. But if you want to push yourself to the limit, just really try to make it so that when that conversation's done, you feel like, hey, I did what I could today, and that person's set up for success. I feel good about myself doing that, and I feel good about them having something to do. So try one of those. Ask me if you ever have questions. Send me a message online. I may take a couple days to get back to it, but I get back to all my messages. I think send me an email, talk to me in person. I want to be here to answer as many questions as I can. And that's it. Thank you. Yay!